from the News Channel 5 Network. This is OpenLine.
Good evening and welcome to OpenLine. I'm Chris Davis. So happy to be sitting in with you tonight. Rory Johnston is here, but he's got some things he needs to do, so I'm happy to be with you. Our topic tonight on OpenLine is legal options and advice for victims of domestic violence. Unfortunately, that is only becoming more and more of a concern, but we want, especially if it applies to you, but I'm sure there are many of you that may unfortunately know people that are in these type of situations. We want to let you know more about this topic, more about the different resources that are available, and to help us navigate all of that is Ameilia Luna. She is from the Legal Aid Society based out of Murfreesboro. Amy, first give us a little bit of background about what you do.
So I'm the managing attorney of the Murfreesboro office. Legal Aid Society has 8 offices throughout Middle Tennessee, and my office is located in Murfreesboro. We help people with civil legal issues. Specifically, I'm the family law practice lead, and so we help victims of abuse to get safety and independence. That's one of the things that we do. We also help with a lot of other things, like helping with public benefits denials, certain housing matters, some tax issues, seniors. So we do other civil legal things, but tonight we're going to focus on the family law and getting victims safe.
Sure, and maybe that's a good place to start. So if somebody is realizing they're in a toxic situation, what are some of the steps that they need to do first?
Sure. Well, there are lots of resources out there. There is the National Domestic Violence Hotline where you can call and you can talk to someone about your situation. I'm going to give that number. It's 1-800-799-7233. There's also the Tennessee Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-356-6767. Tennessee also has a coalition to end domestic violence, and then there's also family justice centers located throughout Tennessee. So if you called the Tennessee Domestic Violence Hotline, they can maybe hook you up with the Justice Center or the Domestic Violence Center in your area that maybe can help you to look exactly what you need for your specific situation, whether it's an order of protection, whether you need to go into shelter, what might be available and what you might need.
Sure. I know we hear in many situations people needing to reach out for help, but also it can be a sensitive situation. So if someone's in that type of situation where they can't draw a lot of attention to themselves but need to get resources, what would you recommend?
You can definitely, as I said, calling if you're in a safe, if you're not near the abuser, to maybe be able to call, to reach out. There's also websites, and when you go to the domestic violence website, there's ways you can hide that you're looking at the website to get the assistance. Also, if it gets to the level where there's a criminal assault or something like that, the police can also tell you where is a domestic violence shelter, take you to the domestic violence shelter and help you with that. We have a website too, that it's www.las.org, and we have a ton of pamphlets on there that talks about orders of protections, talks about safety, safety planning, and so it can give you some resources. And if you're at the library, you could maybe look at that, because it'll be on a computer that's not going to show where you've been if you're worried about your abuser finding out, but that could be a way to get information.
You mentioned order of protection. If someone isn't familiar with that term, what is it and what does it do?
Yes. So an order of protection, it's a legal order, and it gets signed by the judge, and what it does is it tells the person who's harming you that they can't come around you, and there's legal consequences if they do. So if you have been a victim of domestic abuse, sexual assault, or stalking, then you could petition for an order of protection. There is a domestic violence shelter that helps, covers each county. They can help you file that. The clerk's office can give you the forms and help you fill out those forms. Legal Aid Society also could help you to do that and fill out those forms. And then you file that with the court. The abuser will be served with that paper, so they're going to know. But when they're served, there is a temporary order that can be signed. So as soon as they're served, they could be told they can't come around you. And then there'll be a hearing, and then at that hearing, that's when the judge decides, is this going to be an order that's going to go in place? And it can be up to 1 year. So, and in that order, it can also cover if you've got children together, what's going to happen, who has the children. It can tell you that you get to stay in the residence. It can deal with the pets. It can deal with some child support if there's children involved. So it can deal with a lot of things. The judge can say, and it is a temporary order, but it tells them they have to stay away. And if they come around you, then they could be arrested. They can face criminal charges because of that.
So it sounds like it kind of puts in a little bit of at least a legal safety net for someone that's ready to make a departure.
Yep, that's exactly what it is a legal safety net. And then you know, too, for individuals who are married, you know, a divorce could be the next step, and an order could go in place in the divorce that also tells them that they can't come around them to keep them safe.
Absolutely. You know, I imagine when someone is thinking, okay, maybe it's time for me to leave, especially if someone's living together, do you need a plan in place, and kind of what are some things that people should consider?
Yes. So, and you know, sometimes it takes on average, it's about 8 times before somebody leaves. So, you know, the first incident of abuse, they may not be ready to leave, or you know, there are a lot of things that come into play and makes it difficult for people to get out of situations. Money is one of them. There's a lot of things. So definitely it's important to safety plan. That's what we call it, is safety planning. And it's, you know, always being aware of your surroundings. You know, if you're living with them and there's an explosive situation, making sure that you know where the exit is, trying to stay, you know, near an exit. Don't be in rooms like bathrooms because they're small, or kitchen because there's dangerous items in there. So be ready. Have a bag packed and hidden with, you know, a change of clothes, maybe some extra money, copies of important papers, or even just having your important things in there, so that when you need to leave, you can quickly leave with it. You know, make sure you're talking to somebody and let them know, like a family or friend that you trust, I'm in this bad situation, I'm afraid, and maybe have a code word with them, so that if you call them on the phone, you can say that code word. They know that it's not safe, and they can get help to you, police, to come and help you to be safe. So there's a lot of things that can go into having a safety plan while you're living in it. But then even once you leave the abusive situation, sometimes the most dangerous time is when you leave. Not when you're in it, but then when you leave, you still have to be safe, and you still have to watch your surroundings, because sometimes the perpetrators get angry and could do things once you're gone. And the order protection is great, but I always remind folks, it's a piece of paper. And so these things that we talked about being safe, you know, needs to still continue to go on past the order protection.
You know, you just listing all that off made me think, gosh, there's a lot of things that you have to consider before taking that step, and things, different variables and that kind of thing. Is, you know, reaching out to a legal aid society, is that something that people can walk you through over the phone and that kind of thing too?
Yes, we do have, many of our offices have victim advocates that can help give you safety advice. The domestic violence shelters, I mean, that's their #1 job, is to give you all of this safety information too. So they have advocates there that can give information. We have pamphlets on our website that talks about all this stuff, and even more detailed than what I talked about how to be safe, how to get safe, how to plan to be safe. But yes, legal aid can help. Domestic violence programs can help in this process. And abuse is not just physical abuse too. So, you know, control and manipulation, isolation, you know, those are things that perpetrators, you know, it starts out, it doesn't start out with physical abuse, it starts out with control, manipulation, and that's a form of abuse too. We have a great card that says 15 signs someone can be violent, and lots of times I'll go over that with my clients, and they'll be like, you know, they're maybe not hit all 15, but they've hit a lot of them. And so for people to be aware of what that is and try to catch those signs early, so that they don't end up in, where it's really bad, physical abuse. So.
Absolutely. I can't help but think the pandemic has changed so much in our world, and especially during those moments of safe at home that had to put people in some tricky situations at home. How did the pandemic impact, and what did you see?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there is a lot of isolation. People could use the pandemic as, if you go out, you're going to get sick. So yes, they were definitely at home. But also another thing that people don't think about is the financial aspect of it. The pandemic caused a lot of financial hardship for folks. And to leave an abusive situation, it involves a lot of financial things. So a lot of people, unfortunately, maybe are not able to get out, or they don't see that they can get out because financially, what are they going to do? They don't have a job because they lost it during the pandemic, or, they together can barely pay for their rent together. How can they pay for it by themselves? So financially, the pandemic had huge effect on the ability for people to get out of that abusive situation.
I'm curious, did you see an uptick in calls and reports?
I mean, it's always busy. It's definitely always busy. But I mean, actually, I think initially when we were early in the pandemic, no, because I think people were just kind of like, again, sheltering at home, not reaching out, but again, it's busy. We get a lot of calls for help.
Sure, and of course we find ourselves in an interesting time right now too. We'll talk more about that after the break and much more. You're watching Open Line.